you guys are going to tell me UCLA destroys Maryland. I mean, that's what happened tonight. In simple terms, I don't even know what the final score ended up being. I'll look it up before I talk next. But this game was over from 5 minutes into this game. They went on, I believe, like a 15-point run to start, and then another 13-point run immediately. And I wish I could say this, guys, but this ain't the first time the Kevin Willard teams have had a very, very promising start to a season, followed by loss after loss after loss.
But that's not fair. That's not fair. This is a new program, a new team. You can't blame. Now, I know we gave them a lot of credit for their start, right? Obviously, beating St. Louis, Miami out of the gates, and they beat Illinois. We're giving them a ton of credit. I think we all knew they weren't that good. We knew that they were going to come down to earth. Now, did we know they'd get blown out at home to UCLA? Maybe not to this degree, but, those holdovers, he had to change the culture, right? And Hakeem Hart and Dante Scott played so well out of the gates. They've come down to earth a little bit, and now there's so much pressure on Jameer Young to have to do everything for them right now. So I think there's somewhere in between certainly what they were tonight and what they were at the beginning of the year. I think if Kevin Willard can get this team to the NCAA tournament, it's a hell of a year.
Yeah, and that's probably what they are, right? Like I understand why they climbed as high as they did in the rankings, but I think they're much closer to the team that struggled against Tennessee to this team than they are to being a top. What they cap out at like 13th in the country, something like that. So it's not surprising. It's surprising to see them get 30-pieced at home by UCLA. Like in that building, in that environment, SVP is sitting courtside. You have the you have the TIFOs coming down in the student section at one end. Like, it's surprising to see him get worked that bad in that building. But I also think at some point, like, they kind of got figured out a little bit, right? That people kind of realized what they were doing. And then it just, the bottom kind of fell out a little bit. To me, honestly, this says a lot more about UCLA than anything about Maryland. I think we kind of knew that something was coming with Maryland. I didn't know what to think of UCLA coming into this game. And I mean, the thing you didn't mention, right? Tiger Campbell tried to take 2 charges in the first half. I thought he was going to get both charges. Both of them were called blocking fouls. Under 16 timeout, he gets yanked. And UCLA still finds a way to be up 49-20 at the half, despite the fact that they don't have their starting point guard, first team all conference Pac-12 player. I took a lot more out of UCLA's performance in this game than I did out of Maryland.
Yeah, so just box score reading, if I were to tell you before the game that Tiger Campbell plays 16 minutes, Amari Bailey scores 4 points, we're probably thinking Maryland has a good shot in that game. My just quick take on this from what I saw in this game, it looked like a team that was a little worn down. And if you look at the last 3 games, I mean, Tennessee, UCLA, both top 5 teams on Jeff's favorite, Ken Pom right now. Game before that, a trip to the Kohl Center, Wisconsin, not an easy place to play. But the game script of those 2 games before this one was honestly kind of similar to the start tonight. Wisconsin jumps out to a 10-point lead very early at home against Maryland, and they have to claw their way back into making that a game late. Then they go to Tennessee. They're down 17 points at halftime, and they claw all the way back to make it a 3-point game. Tonight, it just looked like a team that to me was a little out of gas from doing that the last 2 games. But like you said, Rob, it's
they don't have a bench either. They don't have a bench really.
That's the biggest issue. That's the biggest issue right there. Is like they got their 5
UCLA
guys.
Doesn't have one either, but they've had more rest. They've played teams that they could get their legs back, right? I saw UCLA in Vegas. They lose 2 games. Still the most entertaining part of my trip to Vegas. Well, I mean, there were a few, but one of them was standing outside their locker room after their second loss with my daughter and hearing, I think it had to be a chair, be thrown across multiple walls. And then
hold on.
Yes.
Hold on. I just want to clarify something for the listeners.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I want you to understand what you're saying right now.
Yeah.
You are saying that you went to Vegas
for
4 days.
Yeah.
And the most entertaining part of that experience was standing outside of UCLA's locker room. I want you to think about that for a second. And I want you to decide if that's what you want on the record.
I lost a lot of money playing blackjack. So it couldn't have been winning. Couldn't have been the blackjack table. Yeah, probably that might have been it. It was not the most memorable trip to Vegas, but yeah. And then Mick Cronin dropped a couple words that my daughter even had never heard me say. So she looked at me like, whoa, what is that? And I had to explain to her that this is what happens in some locker rooms with some coaches when you lose games this way.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, flipping to the UCLA side of this quickly. Their next game after this, neutral site on Saturday against Kentucky. High profile game on a great slate of games that entire day. But at this point, this was impressive, obviously. Also, UCLA's first win against a top 25 opponent this season. You saw them on the neutral floor, Jeff. They lost both of those games against Illinois and Baylor. What do you project forward from them, and what do you expect against a Kentucky team that's had their own ups and downs this season?
Yeah, they're going to be really good. I picked them to win it all. I'm not, I don't have a ton of confidence in that, but I think they're one of those teams. And their starting five, I'll put up against most starting fives in the country. And Jalen Clark's been very, very good. Amari Bailey's been better than we thought out of the gates. A lot of freshmen have really struggled. Amari Bailey is not one of those guys. Adam Bona has struggled a little bit to stay on the court, but he's a beast, and you could see even in spurts what he's able to do, and he's only going to get better and better. The key for them is, can they find a bench, right? Yeah. Singleton can make shots. That's important too. Can they get one more dude off the bench? But Jaquez is awesome. Tiger wasn't good tonight, but he's as good as almost any point guard out there. Those two are veterans. I like UCLA. I think it's going to be a hell of a game against Kentucky, who still hasn't beaten anybody of note yet. I know we'll say Michigan and Hunter Dickinson will be offended by that, but Michigan still, to me, is a fringe tournament team right now.
Yeah, they are. The only disagreement I have with what you just said there, I agree with almost everything. The only disagreement I have is that I think the key to UCLA being a team that is actually good enough, as you put it, to win a national title is Amari Bailey. Yes, I know he's averaging double figures. I know that people that are box score watching are saying, oh, look how good he is. Well, they've played 3 high major opponents, right? He has, in those 3 games, 10 total points and is 4 for 17 from the floor and 1 for 4 from 3. He has not been good against real competition. And if UCLA is going to be as good as you want them to be, he has to be that good against real competition. And frankly, I think that he probably can get there. Right. If you're able to put up 19 points against some of these mid-major programs, you'll probably be able to figure it out to be able to, at least be a 10 to 12 point per game guy in the Pac-12. But that's what they need out of him. I think when they kind of hit their ceiling, they basically have one guy that can initiate everything in Tiger Campbell. As good as Jaime Jaquez is, and as much as I love that dude as a player, like, he's really just a complementary piece that happens to be a really, really good complementary piece, right? I think they need a second.
Really?
Yeah, like he's not.
Come on, that Greg, back me up on that one. Come on,
but it's the same thing. It's the same thing as Oscar Tshiebwe. I would call Oscar Tshiebwe a complementary piece. He's not your go-to guy. He's not the guy that you want to be the person that gets the ball every single possession. If he is the guy that gets the ball every single possession, and you have someone that isn't a great passer, isn't a great shooter, that can kind of exploit mismatches, and he's really good at that. But you need another dude out there that can go get you a bucket. Because if you have Jaime Jaquez going up against defenses that are going to target him nonstop, I think that's a little bit of a problem. The Jalen Clark thing, like, I think even he's more of a finisher than he is like a creator, right?
No, they don't have that guy. I listen. I'm with you. Jaime's not like that dude that you're going to give him the ball and say, hey, go get a hoop.
The big picture thing is, I think what we're seeing is the value of what Johnny Juzang brought, where you could just give him the rock and say, go get us a shot.
Sure.
Go get us a good look. And he could go do it. And having a second guy on the floor with this roster makeup, I think, is really important. And if Amari Bailey can get there, that's when they kind of hit their ceiling. And if I had to guess, I think that he probably will get there, just because if you look at his track record as a high school player, as an AAU player, and kind of what his expectations were coming in, those guys tend to figure it out, I think. So I'm bullish on UCLA moving forward. I know we're going to play like the stock game. What is this?
Where do you stand with UCLA?
No, it's a good segue. They've impressed me more than I thought, primarily because I think Jaquez has been better in that primary offensive function role than I thought he would be in the preseason. I did the Pac-12 preseason preview with you, Jeff, and I think I was the only guy on the call that picked Arizona to win it. And I still love this Arizona team. I still have questions with this UCLA team. But honestly, coming into the year, I liked Arizona with some separation to UCLA because I thought they were going to struggle on the offensive end. And yes, it's helpful to have a guy like Tiger Campbell manning the point guard position if you don't have that bucket getting wing. But I think the two of them are working out better than I thought. And Bailey has some time to get there. Yes, he needs to get there by NCAA tournament play. But this team's going to win a ton of games in the Pac-12 with or without him. The only thing I'd push back on Rob's point here, please don't compare his limitations offensively to Oscar's. Like that's
no, yeah, I know.
Has a lot more as a go-to guy offensively than Oscar does.
No, yeah, it's absolutely. But I think that I was just trying to make a point about what complimentary player meant because I knew that thing went right over Goodman's head.